All right, the red light is on. That means we're ready to make some podcasting magic. I am sitting here with Eli Packouz, the founder and creator of Instafloss, a really amazing Kickstarter campaign that is currently sitting at about $640,000, closing in on that coveted $1 million mark with 12 days to go. Eli, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing much better now.
Yeah, right. It's going to be a great feeling to have just a slam dunk Kickstarter out there right now. Huh?
Absolutely, it really is. It really is.
Cool. So, first thing we do for our podcast is we want to get the levels right. So we always ask our guests what they've had for breakfast. Tell me about it.
Actually, I had, a protein shake for breakfast. It was the very first thing. Actually, no, let me start. I had a pre-workout for breakfast. Then I had, I don't know if that counts as food. Then I had a protein shake. Nope. And then after my shower, I had pork chop, vegetables.
Whoa. Blow my mind. Wait a minute. All right. What diet is that? Is this keto? Is this...
if it fits your macros diet, I try to get about 3,000 calories a day and 220 grams of protein. We could spend like the next 2 hours.
I just got back into CrossFit since we're opening up with outdoor workouts now. So
actually, the office here that we work out of, ever since the COVID hit, everyone's working from home, but I still have access to the office and I have a gym in the office. And so just be a real shame if no one's there and using it. So I
envy.
I was responsibility to use the office equipment.
Man, I was 7 days a week. I was down 60 pounds. I was doing Olympic weightlifting, and this whole thing hit, and it's bad news. But anyway, we're not here to talk about our fitness goals. We're here to talk about flossing. So,
which is part of your fitness goals.
It is part of your fitness goals. So let's, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about your background as an entrepreneur? Tell us about who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is not my first company. My first company, I started with a crowdfunding campaign, like so many companies do, back in 2013. And that was in the music technology space.
Yes.
And we had a successful crowdfunding campaign, not quite as successful as this.
What was it? Because if you know about Jeff and I's history, we started crowdfunding in the music space around that time. So.
Oh, really? What did you make?
So we're Groovebox Studios is our previous company. And we were, similar to what you see Scary Pockets now and Assemble Sound and the Audio Tree. We were doing this basically live video recording thing. And so the record we hold is, and it holds to this day, is we are currently the project founder with the most successful campaigns in the history of Kickstarter. I think we have 357 successful campaigns during that project. Yeah. So
how do you have time to actually run your business? You just,
or is that that was the business? Yeah, that was the business prior to this. Yep.
Just running the campaigns, moving them forward.
Yeah, doing the whole thing, the video production, the audio. That was Jeff and I's baby for a long time.
You've helped a lot of people move forward.
We have a wall of fame behind us for that.
Beautiful.
Couple of things back there. Couple of things. The Wrecking Crew documentary came out of that. So we had some stuff. But that's not about us. Let's talk about you. So
I'm happy to talk about both.
So your first Kickstarter, successful in the music space.
Yes, it was a drum machine and a guitar pedal. So if you're playing with your hands and you want to be able to control a drum track and you didn't have the ability to do so, well, now we put in a guitar pedal so you can add fills, transitions, move around, chorus, etc. That was a success. We delivered 9 months later, and we became a bestseller. We won a lot of industry awards, and then that company went on to produce 4 different product families.
Okay.
And many of which were bestsellers, a lot of which were game changers. And I definitely learned a lot going through all the different phases of the company, ideation, manufacturing, all the things that can go wrong with manufacturing. We were making metal products, then we made some products out of plastic, whole different ball game, different things you have to know. contracting engineers, bringing engineers in-house, realizing the engineers you brought in-house suck, changing your in-house engineers, building up a team, realizing how the organization should and shouldn't be. I would say that the education I've received from that journey is definitely way more expensive than any college education.
Yeah.
Just the amount of like, wait a second, this one mistake cost us $200,000 right there. This mistake cost us $300,000,
Yeah.
And it piles up when you realize just how expensive your education has been.
Tell me about it, man.
But the entire time, I knew that there had to be a way for a device to do your flossing for you. Every night when I would go to bed, I'd be like, we're making this gear and we're making this gear and we're making, premium features for musicians. And when you're making stuff for musicians, it has to be top-notch quality. They require no latency. They require, the sound of the switch can't be above a certain...
No dirty pots. None of that stuff, yep.
It's crazy, every little thing. And we would pour all our money into making sure that the electronics and the mechanical and the software and the firmware, et cetera, was perfect. And throughout this process, and every time I'd go to bed, I'd be like, there has to be a way to do this. And so when I see a problem, I really dive deep into it. I become obsessed with it. And I started reading periodontal textbooks. I started seeing, well, what makes a good floss? What are you really trying to do when you floss? Is it just between the teeth? Is it underneath the gums? Is it all the way around? And I started talking to dentists and befriended some people at Nova Southeastern Dental School and talked to dental researchers. And what I learned was that what you're trying to do with flossing is you're trying to get between the teeth where the toothbrush doesn't reach, and you're also trying to get underneath the gum line where also the toothbrush almost certainly, unless it's painful to think about, the toothbrush doesn't reach. It shouldn't reach there.
Right.
And that your gums go all the way around your teeth. And so the most effective thing you can do is not only get between the teeth, but get underneath the gums all the way around and clean that area between your gums and your teeth. And the most effective way to do this is via water flossing. And because water can get into smaller places than string can, the intensity can be adjusted to the health of your gums, and water can go 360 degrees around your tooth. But the problem with water flossers is that they take really, really long and they're cumbersome. And in order to get it right, you have to aim it at 90 degrees, and getting it here is going to cause a mess. And the number one complaint people have about flossing is that it takes too long. And water flossers, as they currently stand, while being more effective and more comfortable, take the number one complaint about flossing and they make it worse. So it's not really a surprise to me that it hasn't become the thing that everybody does. A lot of people do it, but it's not as widespread as it ought to be for people's health. So with Instafloss, what we've done is we've created, you can see right here, it's a 2Us. This goes over your top teeth, this goes over the bottom teeth, and right in here is a joint that can swivel all the way around. So you start it in your back molars, and it just rotates all the way around to the other back molars. And it has jets firing from both sides at 90 degrees to the gum line, which is the appropriate angle for the maximum clean. And it has multiple jets, so it's able to clean them much faster and also cover 100% of the gum line. And so in 10 seconds, you floss all your teeth 360 degrees around every tooth without missing a single spot. And the pressure is adjustable, so if flossing hurts, this is something really for you.
Awesome. So yeah, it's amazing how you go from the music space to the dental space. And the thread is really the problem solving. So what made you decide to bring this to Kickstarter? What was it, the past experience or something you saw in the space? What made that the right platform to go with? So
I have run the crowdfunding campaign before for my first company, and I found that experience to be very valuable for a number of reasons. Number one, you really get the most feedback from people who understand where you are in your journey. You understand where the product is. They know this is the availability of the product, and they're going to give you feedback. They're going to wait for it. They're going to advocate for you. These are really the early adopters. These are where all the initial people are. If you were to just go to market, you're not necessarily going to reach that community of makers who can give you such feedback, and if you deliver something awesome, give you that level of advocacy. It's also just a very intelligent business move where instead, not only do you get this community of creators who understand the process and the journey of creating a product, but they also are willing to essentially finance you to get there.
Right.
And both of those make it just a no-brainer for a lot of reasons for a company to go down this path first. It also means that we didn't have to raise as much money from outside investors. We still had to raise money, but we were able to keep a lot more of the creative control. We were able to just have a lot more flexibility because it's backed by the community.
Yeah. So it sounds like, that's obviously what draws people to Kickstarter and really find a lot of success. Was there a great track record of dental hygienic products on Kickstarter? I know there's a lot of personal hygiene, but dental hygiene?
So there have been a lot of things in the toothbrush space trying to make your your toothbrushing quicker. And some of them were successful, some of them weren't, some weren't able to deliver. One of the things we did was we saw some campaigns that were really successful, and then we looked at the companies, we saw, they went bankrupt. What happened there? And so I went to LinkedIn and I found everybody who worked for this company and another company and a few different companies that had failed in the space. And I contacted each one of them and I said, I want to hear your story. What happened? And not all of them chose to speak to me, but many, many did. And I got information from the engineers and from the lawyers and from the manufacturing people, from the executives and from marketing side of what they were trying to do. And I really learned a lot from their experience in terms of what to avoid. And some of the things were things that I knew from beforehand, from having gone into manufacturing in the past. One of the lessons that everybody needs to know, if you're an inventor, if you're trying to bring a product to market, 3D printing and mass manufacturing are not the same thing. If you can create one, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can create 10,000. There are shapes that are possible and there are shapes that are impossible. And you can't just think that, if we make this and we mass manufacture this and we make it with molds, or if we, CNC or whatever we do, that is going to be better. You have to, it's a completely different thing, and you have to design for that. And you have to have engineers with experience for that. So one of the problems that one common thread with a lot of these companies was that they did not design for manufacturing in mind. And so some of the things that they wanted to do were just straight up impossible. And they ran into that, and the last minute they're like, our design is impossible. How can we overcome this? And we have to completely redesign it. And now the product's a different product and it's not what we said it would do. And then we have to spend all the money we have, and now no one's buying it because we can't promise them that. And so they go bankrupt. There's also, unfortunately, a few cases where I saw they didn't go bankrupt, but the product was utter garbage. If you put some silicone in your mouth and you vibrate it, it's not the same thing as a toothbrush. So we knew that in order to avoid that fate, we couldn't just do something that sounded nice. We couldn't just say, hey, I think this is going to work. We knew that especially when it comes to people's health, that you have to know what you're talking about. You have to know that it does what it says it does. So very early on, we contacted dentists and dental researchers to understand what would make something work. And the Instafloss operates on the same fundamental technology as current water flossers. So water flossers, they use pulsing jets because pulsing is 3 times more effective at removing debris than non-pulsing, and is aimed at 90 degrees because there's a lot of science that shows that is the most effective at getting deeper into your gums. And each one of the jets is fundamentally the same technology as the devices that have been on the market, accepted by the ADA, and shown to work for decades. but we use multiple jets so we can clean many areas at once, so we can deliver the same floss better without missing a spot.
Nice. Did you have a functional prototype prior to launch?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a functional prototype. It all depends what you mean by functional, but we've had an inarguably functional prototype for almost 2 years now. I've been using it every night. My co-founder's been using it every night. And we've been running tests on it. And one of the things we did is we compared it in some tests to manual water flossing, and we outperformed because people who were using our device, they weren't missing any areas, they weren't angling it incorrectly. So the Instafloss did it for you correctly.
Nice. Let's talk about your go-to-launch strategy. You know, what did you do in terms of pre-launch marketing or getting the word out prior to the launch day of the campaign?
So prior to, for I don't even know how many months. Was it 6 months? Was it 8 months? I don't recall. But we put up a website, and we started running some ads, being very efficient with them, not spending too much, to get people to drive traffic to the website, where we talked about where we were in development, what we were doing, and ask people to sign up to our mailing list so they can be notified when we launch. And one of the things we knew from prior marketing experience is that your email lists tend to go cold. People sign up, they forget about it, they switch their email, they haven't received anything for a while from you, so it goes to the spam folder. And so if you're collecting emails this far out from your campaign, there's a high likelihood that you're only going to get a fraction of people who will even receive your email later, let alone still be interested. And so one of the things we did to increase the engagement from our people who signed up was we just sent them a plain text. We reached out to every single person, and we said, hey, we saw you signed up. Can you tell us what you like about flossing? What don't you like about flossing? What are the problems? Why don't you floss? Or why do you floss, and why are you interested in this product? And we engaged in many email threads with as many people as would respond to us. And we kept the conversations going. And through that, we were able to retain a very, very, very high engagement rate, a very high open rate, and our audience stayed relatively fresh. And so when we launched, we had a lot of people who were just as excited at day one, if not more so.
Right. Yeah. It's obviously a best practice. So the conversation, I think, is the real piece that a lot of project creators miss is, it's great, I got an email, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
If you go past 4 or 6 weeks, that reliability of that email being there as a backer is really, really slim to none. But engaging in a dialogue and where that person crosses that threshold of, I want to buy that thing, to I'm contributing to the development of this thing.
Yes.
Or, that's a very different type of participation you're going to get out of a backer.
Absolutely. We also ran, so we actually kept them updated with design choices we were making. We ran some polls. We had a blog. We had many conversations, not only on email, but also on our website and also on our blog and also via polls. So people were very engaged from before the crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, almost documenting the development process and sharing with them, right?
Yeah. It's a special thing to be part of.
So, you were pretty modest in your ad spend prior to launch. What are you doing right now?
Actually, right now we're not running any ads.
I see one active up there.
So we want to run ads, actually, and this is something that we actually considered maybe potentially a mistake. So our thought was to go with Kickstarter prior to Indiegogo, because Kickstarter, let me start from the Kickstarter has a bigger list. Indiegogo allows you to do a follow-up campaign to your Kickstarter. Your Kickstarter will follow on to Indiegogo. Indiegogo charges a higher fee for that, but it makes it one continuous campaign rather than two discontinuous campaigns. So we figured that would be a good process. But one thing that we didn't quite realize prior was that Kickstarter, unlike Indiegogo, doesn't give you a Facebook pixel. Nope. So if you are running Facebook ads, you cannot optimize for conversions. You can only optimize for clicks. And optimizing for clicks, it varies, but it's probably about 4 times more expensive than optimizing for conversions. So
welcome to the club. Yeah.
So when we realized that we would spend probably about 4 times more per person, we're like, why are we going to spend all that money right now on very inefficient ads and just throw our money down the drain for essentially, an egotistical, oh, look at our campaign, look what it did. Oh, yeah, well, you didn't actually make any, you're in the red because of your ad spend. So what we're doing right now is we are doing more, I don't know if you would call it guerrilla, but we would do more word of mouth and outreach and spreading traffic through means that are not ads. And we're going to save our ad budget for Indiegogo.
Give me an example of some of the guerrilla stuff you're doing.
So we're doing cross promotions with other campaigns. We are getting into newsletters with one way or another. We are continuing to email our list. We're doing PR. We're getting into some articles. We're getting onto some blog posts. Overall, they all help a little bit. Obviously, nothing with the scalability and the potential of ads, but that's all we've decided that we'll do right now. And for not running ads, I think we're doing pretty okay.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably going to hit the million, so that's
a
rare club. Yeah. Right on. So obviously you're going to flow into a Indiegogo campaign, then you're probably we're going to see the ads go bananas there. Mm-hmm. These things ship to backers December.
Yes.
Pretty confident with the COVID situation, the world going crazy.
As long as there isn't a second wave of catastrophic shutdowns, which obviously could be the case. We don't know yet. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows. But assuming things go as they currently are right now, then yes, we are confident. A lot of factories are desperate for business. A lot of factories have extra capability right now. They have extra capacity. And we've been in talks with some factories, and we have some quotes. And we know that it's about a 3-month process to make your molds, to run your pilot production, to quality test that pilot production, to go into mass manufacturing, and to then start the delivery process. We added a little bit of a padding to that because one of the things we know happens in every crowdfunding campaign is you get a lot of suggestions. And a lot of the suggestions are really good. A lot of the suggestions are great. In fact, my favorite suggestion that came out of the entire campaign was someone who messaged us and said, I actually own a manual one-jet water flosser myself. It takes forever, but I do it because it's more comfortable than string. But one thing I dislike is that when I'm doing this, water tends to get on my hands because water comes out. And I think you should make the handle like this. You hold it here, and then it comes out at a 90-degree angle. And then the water, you just go over the sink, you go do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and nothing touches your hand. And we're like, well, I don't know. It's a little funky. Let's print a prototype. Let's play with that. And we tried it, and it was awesome. And I personally love it. I've been flossing with this for a year and a half, and it just really elevated this is just this. I don't even have to think about my hands. Because before I was always like, okay, I'm doing this, but I want to just make sure I don't get any water in it. Now I don't care. I'm just going to try to get water in it. You can't. So that was really great. So we're going to have to make a few different prototypes of that, test it, re-get it quoted, etc. So that's a little bit of a process. It's not that involved, right?
Right.
The sort of changes we would make now would not be major design changes, nothing majorly mechanical, nothing giant, no huge components. If people decide that they want a fundamental change, well, that's a completely different product. But if they have slight things that they say that would make the experience a little bit more convenient, or they would enjoy it more, then we can definitely add it. For example, having a little groove that you can add a colored band so you can tell if your mouthpiece is yours or someone else's, and that's a minor thing someone pointed out to us. People have suggestions of they want the light to blink when you're coming to the end of it, or they want it to give you a warning if you're flossing too much, because if you're over flossing, that's also an issue, just like over brushing. There is a limit to how much you should do.
Right.
And these things are just changes in the code. We don't even have to change the product, but we don't want to print 10,000 of these before we get the suggestions. And so we have that window for that purpose.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, it looks fantastic. You're doing everything right. It's really interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen if you're holding your ad spend back for Indiegogo, because the general rules with the Indiegogos is they tend to do okay, like you're keeping funding going in, but they don't nearly have the momentum that the Kickstarter does. Mm-hmm. And obviously, a component of that is ad exhaustion. So if your ads are going to be relatively fresh by the time you get to that, it'll be a really curious case study to see what kind of a difference it made.
Be sure to follow up with us. We'll see how it goes. I mean, obviously, we don't know until we get there. But that's currently our plan.
Yeah. Well, all right. So everybody, it's over on Kickstarter. It's called Instafloss. Eli, man, knocked it out of the park with this. So we're going to have to follow up talking about Indiegogo, music, and CrossFit. So that's our 3 topics for next time.
And I have some questions for you. I'm going to look into your companies prior in the music tech space, because that's what I've done for about a decade. And I'd really like to see the gear you've created. I know things about that. So.
Well, we didn't create any gear. We used gear. So yeah, our whole thing was, you got to think back. This is right in the tail end of, record sales dying, and streaming hadn't quite come on the scene yet.
What year are we talking about?
Oh, we're easily 10 years ago. The year Kickstarter was founded, because Kickstarter being founded put the light on for us. So it's, my brain is mush at the moment, right? But so what was going on in the space was no one really knew what to do with record sales. You had iTunes and to a degree Amazon, but breaking through the noise was nearly impossible. And so smaller level artists were just kind of throwing up their hands, going, "Why am I, spending tens of thousands of dollars in the studio for records no one's buying?"
For the passion.
And it was also kind of this space in music where everything was digitized. Everything is samples, and I think everyone's ears were starting to yearn for something more organic. And so, being in Detroit, we built a black box studio. Everyone's in the same room, the engineers in the same room, and we said, "Come in here, play 5 songs. You're on tour already, right? You're out there playing. Come in and do 5 songs live, all in one take. There's going to be no vocal sweetening. There's going to be no auto tune. There's going to be no alignment with the drums. It's mics go up. You play one time. You film it. We record it. We mix it. We put it out. Usually on vinyl. We would take the best 2 and do vinyls with them. And I think case in point, Greta Van Fleet, one of their first shows was doing our thing. So you had this whole generation of this kind of rock revival was building and coming through our doors. And, what you're seeing now, especially with Scary Pockets, Pomplamoose, Postmodern Jukebox, where the video edits and the mixes are simplified compared to what we were doing. We were doing like multi-camera, 11 camera angles, whatever, right? So the video output and the timeline is simplified, but it was going back to capturing the magic of a live performance and the artistry of performance versus, spending 20 hours on 11 layers of kick drum samples, for records that weren't selling. And so that's what we were doing it in 3 cities, Detroit, Chicago, and Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And, we were, turning a band would come in on a Saturday and the everything would be released on the Thursday, So it was this really fast model that eventually burned out from being crowdfunded, and the way we were doing it had a shelf life to it. But when you look at those properties online and what you're seeing happen with those, I think that's the evolution of what we were starting there. And every single one of them crowdfunded. So, yeah.
Wow, well,
a lot of groups broke from that. That was like their first real look at what they could be. And we had a lot of labels, a lot of gear manufacturers with eyeballs on, okay, what's going through these things? We were the one in the Midwest. There was another one in LA doing it, another one on the East Coast doing it. And, it was definitely a development tool that we did for a while.
I see. Wow. Right. Do you have a list of all the crowdfunding campaigns that you've done somewhere? Is it on your website?
if you plug in GBS Detroit on Kickstarter, you will see it all.
All right.
Yeah. And then we did pledge music and some other stuff. But yeah, so that was our world. All right. Well, Eli, it was a pleasure talking to you, man. Good luck with all this. I think that you do have a real shot of hitting that $1 million here, and this is going to be one of those monster campaigns.